All right, everybody, welcome back for another deep dive. Today, we're getting into some seriously shady stuff happening in the world of cybersecurity.
Oh, yeah.
We're not talking about your typical firewalls and antivirus software, though. This is about SpyLoan, a new breed of Android malware that's already tricked millions of
Mm.
people.
Wow.
And it all comes down to something we all know too well, plain old trickery. So imagine this, you're in a tight spot financially, and you see this ad for a quick and easy loan.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty tempting, right?
Totally.
You download the app thinking it's legit, but that's where the nightmare begins. Because what you've actually stumbled upon is SpyLoan. And they're not just going to steal your data. They're going to use it to extort you.
That's awful.
We're breaking down this whole scam today with insights from the latest reports by cybersecurity experts at McAfee Labs and ESET.
Sounds like a wild
So
one.
let's get right into it and unpack how these bad actors are pulling this off. First off, what makes SpyLoan so dangerous?
Well, you see, what makes SpyLoan so sneaky is how it preys on people who are already vulnerable. People who are maybe struggling financially and looking for a quick solution. And it's particularly prevalent in regions like Mexico, Colombia, or Southeast Asia, where traditional banking might not be as accessible.
Right.
So these criminals are exploiting that trust we place in legitimate financial institutions.
That's scary how they twist that need for help into a weapon like that. So walk me through this. How does this whole scheme start? How do they initially hook people?
Well, it all starts with these seemingly harmless apps disguised as quick loan providers.
Okay.
They pop up on your social media feeds promising easy approvals and fast cash.
Ah, I see the classic too good to be true situation.
Exactly.
But wouldn't most people be at least a little suspicious if an app is offering loans with barely any requirements? What makes these apps seem so believable that people actually fall for it?
That's where the deception gets really sophisticated. The whole onboarding process is designed to mirror what you'd expect from a real financial service.
Okay.
They ask seemingly routine questions, request documents for verification, even use industry jargon to appear legitimate.
So they're basically playing a role.
Precisely.
So what are some examples of these tactics they use to gain people's trust?
Well, for example, they might ask you to take a selfie while holding your ID,
Oh, yeah, I've seen that before.
which seems like a normal security measure, right?
Yeah, to prove you're a real person.
But in reality, it's just another way for them to get their hands on a sensitive image.
That's chilling.
They're building up this facade of legitimacy before they reveal their true intentions.
So it's all about that slow play, gaining your confidence before they strike.
Exactly.
At what point do things take a turn for the worse? When does the mask come off, so to speak?
Well, during the setup process, the app will start asking for a whole bunch of permissions.
Okay.
Access to your system, info, your camera call logs, contacts, your location, even your SMS messages.
Wow, that's a lot of access.
It is, and they justify it as necessary for verification or fraud prevention, which might seem plausible at first glance.
I can see how people would fall for that.
Yeah, especially when you're already in a vulnerable position. You're thinking about getting that loan and you just want to get it done.
So you're not really paying close attention to what you're agreeing to.
Exactly.
This whole data harvesting aspect is fascinating.
Mhm.
But how do they actually guarantee they are targeting people in specific regions?
They use a clever system called OTP.
OTP.
It stands for one-time password.
Oh.
It's a code that gets sent to your phone number to confirm your identity. By requiring an OTP from a specific region, they can ensure that they are only targeting individuals within their desired demographics.
Ah, so they're filtering out anyone who's not in their target area.
Precisely.
And once they have that OTP,
Yeah.
plus all the other information they've tricked you into providing,
Mhm.
that's when the real trouble begins, right?
Exactly. At that point, they've got everything they need. Your identification, your financial details, your contact list, even potentially compromising photos.
That's a goldmine for these criminals.
It is, and they know it.
So what happens to all this data they collect?
Well, they encrypt it, usually using a method called AES 128,
Okay.
which is a fairly strong encryption standard, and then they send it all back to their servers.
So it's all neatly packaged and ready for them to exploit.
Precisely.
So let's get to the heart of this. What's the ultimate goal here?
It all boils down to extortion.
Like extortion.
They might contact you out of the blue demanding repayment of the loan at ridiculous interest rates.
Oh, wow.
And if you're even slightly late with a payment, the threats start rolling in.
What kind of threats?
They might threaten to share your personal information with everyone you know.
Oh, no.
Contact your family, your friends, your employer, or even use those compromising photos they got during the verification process to humiliate you.
So they're using fear and shame to control their victims.
Absolutely. It's a
Yeah.
truly despicable tactic.
It's almost ironic, isn't it?
Hmm?
They exploit the desire for quick financial solutions only to trap people in a far worse financial situation.
It's a vicious cycle.
What I find particularly disturbing is that this isn't a new phenomenon. SpyLoan has been around for quite some time, hasn't it?
You're right. This isn't a new threat. It's been around since 2020.
2020.
And it's constantly evolving to stay ahead of security measures.
So even though authorities are aware of it, it's still thriving.
Unfortunately, yes. New versions pop up, and they continue to find ways to exploit vulnerable individuals.
What's even more interesting is that despite multiple versions and crackdowns by law enforcement, the core framework and user experience remain consistent.
That is interesting, isn't it?
It suggests either a single developer who's incredibly adept at staying ahead of the curve, or a shared framework being sold to other cybercriminals. Either way, it's a disturbing sign of how organized and sophisticated these operations are.
It definitely is.
So for our listener who might be thinking, okay, this is scary stuff, but how do I avoid becoming a victim? What's the most important takeaway here?
Vigilance is absolutely key. Before you even consider downloading a financial app, you need to scrutinize it carefully. Read the reviews, pay attention to any red flags. Do your research on the developer, make sure they are a legitimate, established company with a real website.
That makes sense.
And most importantly, look at the permissions they're asking for. Does it make sense for a loan app to have access to your entire contact list or your photo gallery?
Probably not.
Exactly. If something feels off, trust your instincts and walk away.
It's a good reminder that convenience shouldn't come at the cost of our security. In our rush to find quick solutions, we sometimes forget to be cautious. And in the digital world, that can have serious consequences.
You're absolutely right. It's a delicate balance. As technology advances, so too do the methods of those who seek to exploit it. And this raises a crucial question. How can we as individuals and as a society promote digital literacy and empower people to make informed choices about the apps they use?
That's a big question, but it's one we need to address. Well said. Thanks for shedding light on this intricate world of digital deception. And for our listeners, stay safe out there. And remember, when it comes to your personal data, a little skepticism can go a long way.
You got it.
Until next time, take care, everybody.